This is Professor Marijn van Putten, who received a whopping €2 million grant by the European Research Council to linguistically take apart the Qur'an and figure out whether it lives up to its extraordinary claims as a perfectly preserved book originating in the middle of the 7th century.
Dr. Marijn van Putten is specialized in linguistic history of Arabic and Berber, and it's such a focused subject. He's an expert in the language, and so he is looking at the earliest material we can, pre-Islamic, Islamic, Quranic, etc., and is able to see things, and hopefully today we will see loan words. But if you don't have this kind of skill set, you're not going to end up getting these grants to do projects. So can you tell us about this current project you're going to have in January?
Yeah. So I just got word a couple of months ago already by now, but that I got the ERC Consolidated grant, which is a huge €2 million grant, specifically to look at the history of the Quranic reading traditions using primary source material, that is manuscripts, and actually looking at what's going on there, and especially the vocalized manuscripts, and how can we reconstruct how what are now the canonical reading traditions came to be, what was going on before that, how was that being negotiated, all these kinds of questions. So I have a big team. I have 2 PhD students, 2 postdocs, and myself, and 2 more just student assistants, and we'll make a database, and it'll be really fantastic. So it's really exciting. It was last time we talked, I ended on a bit of a sad note, because it's like, I don't know what will happen. And literally that day, as we were having that interview, my email bleeped, and it like interrupted me, and I didn't see what it was, but that was the email telling me that I got it. So our last talk has a very special meaning that way. Other things are technological impossibilities. Al-Kitab, the book, right? A very relevant word, also one of the first words in the Quran. Scripture, writing, people have argued endlessly over what Al-Kitab actually means in the Quran, or what Kitab means, because it doesn't always mean book. It seems to mean writing, it seems to mean holy writs, these kinds of things, but certainly also book and scripture. But the important point is, this is the exact same word that Aramaic uses, which is katav, which comes from kitab. And it's actually also the same word that Hebrew uses. Always, I'm not sure, probably. But the thing is, of course, this can't be the inherited word back from ancient, many centuries ago, back when Hebrew, Aramaic, and Arabic were still a single language. Why not? Well, it's just like tea. We didn't have tea in the year 0, and nobody was writing in the time that Hebrew, Aramaic, and Arabic were still single language. This is before writing was invented. So we're talking about, let's say, 4,000 before Christ or something like that. So really, really far back. Nobody was writing back then. Not even the Sumerians were writing back then, let alone Hebrew, Aramaic, and Arabic. So there's no way for this word to have been inherited from Proto-Semitic, as we would say, the ancient ancestor of all these languages. So it must have come from somewhere, and it's not very likely that Arabic would completely independently come up with the exact same word for book as the Aramaic speakers, right? So it must have been borrowed. And technically we can't tell what the direction of borrowing is from purely this. It could be that Aramaic got it from Arabic. But Aramaic starts writing much earlier. The Arabic script comes from Aramaic, and it seems that they just borrowed not just the script of Aramaic and the idea of Aramaic, but also the technology of writing itself, and therefore the terminology of writing itself. You borrow that. Writing is a technology, right? It's coming up with the idea of knowing how to write, having the materials, having a book. That's a technology, and that's what they borrowed from Aramaic.
I do want to ask you, do you think that it's a coincidence that there's this anti-image debate taking place at this time, where coins, they're literally saying, like, stop putting images on coins, like, and so I wonder if if the Quran, religious Quran background in its origins is, like you said, polemical, but also saying, you know what, even the Jews didn't go far enough. And we're going to go so far to show you what it means in the Ten Commandments, what it really means to not have idols and make these images of living creatures and things. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. That's certainly outside of my wheelhouse. So
it makes me think, though. Like,
yeah, no, I agree. I'm just being an annoying academic who doesn't want to say yes.
That's what I love about academics.
Yeah.
They tell you. I don't know.
I think it's an interesting thought. There's clearly something going on, and the Quran has a message to tell about what monotheism should be like. And even today, Islam has something to tell and to say to Christianity, to Judaism, on how they feel that monotheism should be done. And so there's clearly something going on. Whether to connect that with this kind of anti-imagery thing, I don't know. And I don't. It's also not so clear. Certainly in early Islam, it's not so clear that this kind of anti-imagery thing is an important thing, right? I mean, there are living creatures being put on coins. There are frescoes of Umayyad castles where they're there, and these things continue. At some point, these things become taboo in some places, in other places. But there are also just images of the Prophet with face and everything around in very late text still. I don't know much about this, but my colleagues every now and then make this point. It's like, look, no, this kind of anti-imagery thing is not necessarily what has been traditional, and it's certainly not necessarily what was the view in say early Islam. There's an idea against idols, right? But what do you call an idol? I mean, idol, is that literally the statue of a god you shouldn't be worshiping? I mean,
is it what you're praying to or something?
Right, exactly.
That might make more sense.
Those make all kinds of differences, and so that's kind of the thing. So this is kind of my story about long words in the Quran, what they tell us, how we think about these things, and how we should conceptualize. I think both the Hijaz. I don't think, and this is kind of Peter van Siever's says, like, look, this is all so advanced and so Christologically involved, it cannot have been the Hijaz. And I'm like, well, I think it was Hijaz, and I just think we're modeling the Hijaz wrong, because we're modeling the Hijaz to some extent on later Islamic sources that try to describe this. And that's a debate. I think my linguistic argument for Hijazi Arabic is quite compelling, so that helps for me to be like, no, I think we need to understand it in the Hijazi context.
Are you planning on working on any other books in the future?
Yeah, so my next big research project will obviously end in a monograph at some point, but that's 5 years from now. I have a couple of other things in the works. I'm working on a translation of a description of the Quranic reading traditions, which I hope to publish of the Taysir. I have an edition of a Quranic manuscript coming up, which I'm collaborating on. And there is still another book that I'm supposed to be writing with Haytham Sidki, but both of us are very busy. So I'm not sure when it's going to be written. But we both have quite a lot written for it already, and it's just putting it together into a book. And that all, for me, will be about vocalized manuscripts, Quranic reading traditions, and kind of the result of my project that I did at Princeton, at the Institute for Advanced Study.